Executioners is crazy. I mean, obviously you picture the dude with the hood and the giant axe and whatnot. And like, I mean, imagine like, what does it feel like to be, you know, up next for the guillotine, man? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And what if the blade wasn't, I mean, I've heard, I could be wrong, but I feel like I remember reading that sometimes the blade wasn't sharp enough
They gotta run
and it
through
wouldn't
again.
cut all the way through. Hang on. Like, that's, what the fuck, man?
Dude.
Whose job is it to sharpen that blade?
Probably his.
I got the black lung. I can't come to work tomorrow. It's crazy.
It's always a good hang.
There comes a time
Work sucks.
where we all
I
must
know.
come together as one.
What's fucking good?
Dude. Got a haircut. That's what's good.
It's nothing like the fresh cut feeling, bro.
That's right, dude. Everybody please leave me compliments in the comments. I need them. Yeah, shout out to hairstylist Rocky.
Just crushed it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Speaking of worst jobs in the world, let's talk about my SAT score. I did really poorly on the SAT.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. And the ACT. I did really, really poorly on both of those.
What'd you get on the ACT?
A 26?
That's not terrible.
Is that decent?
I think that's pretty decent.
I'll tell you what is funny, though. I took the AP U.S. history exam, and I did the whole exam, and I got a 1.
That's brutal. I don't even know if I took the AP US. I was like, I'm not taking it. I don't care. I was in AP US history.
Yeah. I know everything I need to know.
Got a couple 3s on the Spanish and English, I think, but
It's not bad. That's not bad.
it's not bad.
Anyway.
Talking about the shittiest jobs.
Yep. In
Today.
the whole world.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of shitty jobs. You had a lot of shitty jobs?
Yeah, I've had some jobs. I've had some decent. I've had some cool jobs. You know, I've worked a bunch of. My parents put me to work in 8th grade, bro.
Yeah.
They're like, you're
In
getting
coal
to fucking
mines?
work. Yeah. And I'm from Mass, and the Celtics won the championship in like whatever. And all my buddies were going to the parade, and my mom's like, nope, you're going to interview for this fucking.
my
like,
God,
I'm in 8th grade.
What job was it?
It was a farm and home store, like right down the street from my house.
Oh.
So it was like, we sold Christmas trees.
Yeah.
I just bagged bird seed and carried horse food out to like rich moms' cars. That was it.
Wow. So it's kind of like a more farm focused Ace Hardware.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
a good way of putting it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I nailed that.
Yeah.
That's fair. I've had some interesting jobs as well, man. Kind of all over the map for me. What was your first job? Was that your first job?
That was my first job,
Oh,
I
wow.
think. Yeah,
Damn,
that was my first job.
that's crazy.
I could walk to it.
Hauling manure.
Holland, yeah, pretty much, man.
Yeah, my first job, I was a lifeguard
Okay, that's
at
pretty
our
cool.
rival high school's aquatic center.
Really?
And it was like it was an Olympic sized pool, man. So we would get really big swim meets and whatnot. And I never had to save anyone. Shout out fate for that.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting job. I definitely worked with a lot of interesting characters. Like it was like high school kids, and then people that had been there their whole life.
Right.
So, which is a lot of jobs. But
Was it like summertime? Like you were chilling?
it was all year round, man.
All
I would
year
work
round?
during. I would just go to work after school. I would
Okay.
I'd stop at Subway, get a teriyaki chicken sub, and head to work. And then during the summers, I would work. My shift started at 5:30 in the morning,
Oof.
and so I'd have to be there at around 5. And dude, that was brutal.
Did you jump in the pool to like wake up?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. No?
No, dude.
Oh my God.
It was too cold. My hair looks pretty good.
That's
mess
a
it
good
up.
hair day, yeah.
Yeah, all I wanted to do was look good as a lifeguard.
Yeah. If you have a sick hair day, you skip in the shower or you shower no matter what?
I don't know. There's a part of me that kind of just like I can't really focus unless I shower.
Yeah. A shower can change your whole day.
Yeah, I'm a morning shower guy.
Yeah. Dude, it
for
can
sure.
it can change the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about another job I had. My grandma worked at a Mercedes-Benz dealership, and she got me in there filing like paperwork and stuff.
goodness.
It was a huge file room, and I just threw my headphones in. I don't even know what I'm bumping at the time. DMB or Lil Wayne, and I would just file crap, but it was stupid.
I'm picturing the scene in SpongeBob where they're all running around in his brain.
That's
Shit's on
literally.
fire. We're gonna drop the load. Yeah, dude. My the job I had after being a lifeguard, I worked for a moving company, And I only worked for one summer, but our task was to move this printing company from one like kind of factory warehouse to another. And I just remember I was just not strong enough for that job. It was me and two of my freaking stoner buddies in high school, and we're like working with these two grouchy moving guys.
Oh, jeez.
And we're moving giant conference tables and, cubicles with sharp metal sticking out of them and whatnot. And I remember when we moved into the new location, there were all these drums with like the biohazard symbol on them, and it smelled like printing ink, just chemicals, man. I was like, it took a couple years off my life. It was wild.
Shit. Yeah. All right. One summer in high school, I installed above ground pools.
What?
Yeah.
That's so random.
Yeah. A friend of my mom's was like, I need help or whatever. And I was just some kid who was like, you could pay like pretty low money. And I was just like, I was kind of a workhorse, but that was fun. And he let me bring a couple of my buddies on sometimes. So we'd like knock out a pool in a couple of days. And that was chill. My senior year of high school, I worked at a butcher shop down the street from my house.
I've heard about this job.
Yeah. That was a job I had for like maybe a couple year and a half or something. But I was a cashier, and then I worked in the deli, and then I worked in the back. Like we did prepared foods.
Okay.
So I would like put all the prepared foods in the containers and label them and stuff.
Yeah.
And the food was banging, and I could ride my bike there, and it was actually it was all right.
Did you like the job? Did you like the place?
I liked the place.
Is it still there?
It is still there, and I'll roll up to it when I'm home.
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
they got great stuff. But I didn't like being the cashier. Hated the cashier.
Yeah, because you're interfacing with fucking nut jobs all day.
But in the back, doing the prepared foods was fire, and I could sneak a meatball here and there.
Oh, how you doing? After my moving company job, I worked on an assembly line at an audio unit factory. We would build rack amplifiers or EQ units or whatever.
Okay.
And dude, I'll never forget the string of 2 days. They handed me this giant bag of knobs, and I had this little tester. I had to put the knob on this little screw and then spin it. And if the knob kind of looked like it didn't rotate evenly, it would go in one pile. And if it rotated evenly, it would go in another pile. And dude, I sat there for 16 hours over the course of 2 days, just rotating knobs.
That's crazy.
And so
man.
I have so much respect for anyone who works on an assembly line or does jobs like that, because they're essential,
right?
But they suck, man.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Was that the worst?
Job. That might have been. I don't know if it was necessarily my worst, because the people I worked with were great, and it was like a good work environment.
Okay.
Everyone was friendly, and it was decent pay, but it definitely was the most boring.
Right. Right.
For sure. What about you?
As far as my worst was probably my next one. I did construction for a summer. This was like freshman year of college, coming home for the summer. I mean, I had no construction experience, so I'm just running around. Like I'm just grab this for me, grab that, and like I could use the drill and shit, but I was scared. He like had me sawing some shit at one point. I was like, I don't want to fuck it up. But it was brutal work. I had to lug like shit with nails sticking out of it. A lot of demo work, a lot of stuff like that.
Wow.
A lot of dust blowing up in my face. So I got mad respect for the construction workers of the world. That's not easy work. And,
for sure.
I did that. I mean, I only did it for a summer, but I was like, shit, man.
Yeah.
Tired, coming home exhausted.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Something I would be exhausted after. I mean, it's not the same as construction, but I was a barista for many years. This was probably my most common job growing up. And I would always work the night shift in college.
Oh.
So I would go to, I always had class at 8 a.m. So my classes would go from 8 to maybe 3 or 4. And I would go home, eat dinner, and then immediately go to my shift at the coffee shop until 2 in the morning.
Jeez,
and it was like, it was interesting, but shout out College Town Bagels in Ithaca. Love that place. That's where I worked. And I also worked as a barista in New York City for a little bit. That got interesting, but I won't get into that. But yeah, it was a decent job. I liked slinging coffee, man. There was something cool about it, and it's kind of artisanal, and you get to you're usually working with pretty cool people,
right.
Like-minded people. It's usually artists and
right.
people in that world. So
absolutely, I'd say probably my favorite job that I've had. one summer, I think it was only one summer, I worked at a cemetery
What?
with like a few of my buddies, like one of my best friends and like a couple other buddies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was weed whacking. We weed whacked around the headstones.
Oh wow.
And like that was our job. Some of the guys were on mowers and stuff, but I was a weed whacker. And we would just get stoned every single day. There was a couple of Mexicans that worked with us, and they would roll up these doobies that were just piss missiles. We would all get stoned. And I would just throw my headphones in, man. And like, this was a time when like weed was great.
The good old days.
Yeah. And it was like, I was just, dude, I kind of loved it. And I was just bumping good music. And, you know, we had a ton of breaks. They gave us a ton of breaks.
That's
And,
cool.
like, yeah. And
Was it
just,
mostly a landscaping job?
It was all weed whacking
Oh, wow.
around headstones.
So
That
you're
was
probably
it.
a badass weed whacker, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty nice with a weed whacker.
All right,
But
all right.
the
Christmas-
weed whacker, Vern. The weed whacker. But yeah,
That's
it
an
was
interesting
chill,
job.
man. It was chill. Didn't get paid a ton, but I mean, we would just hide in the woods and get stoned half the time. And the guys didn't even care. Like our like supervisor would drive around in his truck like looking for us, and he would see us. Like he'd see a mower parked and then like us standing in the trees, and he'd be like, you know what? When we're stoned, we're dialed in. He
That's
knew
what
that.
I'm
Like,
saying,
we'd get
man.
dialed.
You're probably better.
Yeah. So
That's a really interesting job. I'd say my most interesting job in terms of who I interface with, aside from like, you know, right now I'm a musician and artist or whatever. That's definitely interesting when we talk about interfacing with people. But aside from that, I was an Uber driver for a while.
no shit.
That was it was another college job I had. And man, I met some really interesting people.
I bet.
And this is a weird connection, but being an Uber driver is how I gained my appreciation for the changing of the seasons, like living in a place where there's seasons.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. I was driving a woman from California, and she had lived where I was going to college for a couple years at that point. And I was like, just trying to make conversation. I was like, hey, what do you miss about California? What do you like about here? What's the difference? And the first thing she says, she goes, when you live somewhere where there aren't very stark seasonal changes, memories don't have as strong of an anchor as they do when you're living in a place with seasonal changes, because you're like, oh, that happened in the winter of this year or the fall of this year. And it's like, when I think of playing soccer growing up, I think of the fall.
Right.
And like the temperature associated with that and what the foliage looks like. And, think about, January in upstate New York is like we're, sledding or playing in snow or whatever. Yeah. But I can't imagine growing up in a place where it was just kind of similar all the time. Obviously it's not the same every day, but very grateful to have seasons to tie my memories to.
We're sensory creatures kind of, and like you tie those memories to because there's different stuff to do. You're limited in ways, but then it opens up other opportunities. So
I think the most interesting people I ever drove though was I accepted this ride and it was at the airport. So I picked them up from the airport and I see them coming and it's two blind people with their dogs, like seeing eye dogs. And they get in the car. They're like, is it cool if we bring our dogs? I'm like, what, are you going to leave them at the airport? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I love dogs. I don't mind.
Right.
But these two blind folks get in my car and they're an older couple. And I hit go and it's like an hour away. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Fuck, it's going to take me way outside the city. It's going to take me a while to get back in. And the craziest thing, man, we were driving for about, 45, 50 minutes. And then all of a sudden the husband just goes, we're close. And I was like, that's great. He just knew, man. It was wild.
They were both full blind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely blind. And I mean, I don't know if it's just because he knows how far away it is. They take this trip a lot, but I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It was cool.
Was the windows cracked? Did he smell shit?
Yeah, no, it was winter. It was really cold out.
Oh, God. Interesting, man. Interesting.
Yeah, definitely an interesting job, man.
Yeah. This is another one that I had for a while. I delivered beer on a beer truck for a couple of summers in college, and I took a year off in college, and I did this like all year. But I mean, it was hard ass labor, like delivering kegs and cases all day, and I've been inside it's cool that I've been inside the back rooms and like the coolers of like just about every liquor store and bar and restaurant like in the Northeast of like Massachusetts. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was cool. I got to like see in all these places, but you know, it's just kind of shitty. You're dealing with like some dickhead owners and stuff.
Oh, I'm
rotate that girl.
Yeah.
Like, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Not shout out to all the shitty bosses.
Yeah.
Be a fucking good boss.
That was kind of my introduction into the whole bar game. You know, I started in college. I started working as a bartender, which I still do to this day. And that's been, if you get into the right spot as a bartender, you can make a lot of money. Like it can be pretty lucrative. And then like when COVID hit, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something else. Like I took a sales job that my buddy kind of put me up for, and I got it. And I did like liquor sales for like these
Distributors?
a distributor that distributed like no name shit, like nothing you would know.
$3 vodka.
Dude, it was so difficult to like go in and try to sell these products because people, you know how people are with liquor. They want their Jameson, their Tito's.
Of
like,
course.
They're so attached to these brands. It could be an incredible product, but the name brand thing is people are so hypnotized. But anyway, I hated it, dude. It was my least favorite job I've ever had. I wanted to blow my head off getting up every morning.
Wow.
And, you know, if you're in that situation where you're like, I hate this so much that I like literally, I'm reading Don't Kill Myself books. I quit after 3 weeks. I was like, you know, I was doing a great job. My boss was like, you're doing a great job, man. I was like, dude, I'm fucking done. I'm out of here. I hate this. So, and then I went back to work at the bar in upstate New York. But yeah.
That's dude, I like know you, you know, primarily as an actor and a writer, but aside from that, like your day job, I've always known you as a bartender, man. It's like
man. I love doing it. I'm good at it.
I was gonna say, I know you're good at it, man. That's
I don't know. And I've worked in high volume, like bars that are, you know, you got to be efficient and fast because 1,000 people could pour into the door.
Right.
Like that's kind of my skill set. Like I'm not saying I'm not a good mixologist. Like I could shake up a banger, but it's speed and efficiency, man.
Yeah.
I see dollar signs.
Do you have a worst bartender experience story?
Geez, bro. I'm not gonna get into the details. Just cause, but you know, I used to work at a college bar. I used to manage a couple college bars.
Is it the one I'm thinking of?
I don't know. I've had so many, dude. It's all kind of a blur. But I've had drinks thrown at me. I've had to jump over the bar to pull people off of bouncers. You know, like just crazy crap. Like there was one dude like beating the snot out of somebody, and like my managers got him, blood all over him, just like crazy stuff, like kids spitting on him on the ground, like just like insane crap. So I've seen a lot of stuff, and you know, it's exciting though. It's exciting. So.
It's like going to the zoo. You're like, look at that.
Oh, for real, dude.
Holy shit.
And like being sober now, I look out into the crowd sometimes, and it makes me grateful to be sober.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sometimes it really brings the worst out in people.
Yeah. You got anything else that you did?
No, I mean, I think, I don't know. I think I love being a musician and a producer and stuff like that. Yeah. It definitely comes with its ups and downs. And this has been the job where I've probably dealt with the most just absolutely insane personalities, especially producing.
Right.
You know, because I can't really afford all the time to turn people down. You know, people are willing to pay my full rate. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Gotta pay the bills.
And sometimes you just get the most insane characters, man. I had a dude, the first client I ever had as a producer. This was when I lived in Syracuse, and I was still producing out of my bedroom. And like, I remember he comes in, the first thing he says, he goes, "Can I smoke a cigarette in here?" And I was like, "Fuck, is this how the job is gonna be?" I was like, "No, you can go outside though." And I remember this dude, you know, Cameo, the app. Where you pay celebrities to send you a message.
Yeah.
This dude would pay celebrities to send him a personalized voice message, and then he would take those messages and put them in the song.
Is that legal?
No. And he would feature them. I'm like, dude, you can't release this. And I don't think he ever did.
Right.
But I was like, I can't be involved with this shit, man. This is not good. It's like, but that dude was a nut, and it was just like people, just so many people like that, man. A lot of ego, a lot of both inflated ego and really fragile egos, fragile people in general that like.
I feel like you got to tread carefully sometimes.
Yeah, as I get older, I'm starting to not though,
right.
Because it's like if you're in the studio and you know you sing and it's bad, I'm gonna look at you and just go, "Hey, that was bad."
Hey,
You know, I don't know. I'm not really interested in like the ducking and weaving of people's you know, fragile emotions in the studio. It's like, come in here being ready to deal with rejection, man.
right. You're probably doing them a favor too by being
Well, that's all I'm
honest.
trying to do. And it's like, I'm not doing them any favors. I've been like, yeah, that's good enough.
Right.
And it's like, no, like, you know, you're paying me to help you get the best product.
Right,
That's what I do. So
It's
I don't know.
Good mindset.
Maybe I'm just a dick. Anyway, that's what we've done.
Yeah, all kinds of jobs, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this on your way to work and you think your life sucks,
If you're reading the books.
yeah, count your blessings, my friend, because we're about to get into some shit that is a trillion times worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first off, because we did some research on this, you know what I'm saying? Like and a lot of jobs came up that I didn't even know ever existed.
Right.
And a lot of them weren't from modern days.
Yeah.
But I thought just before we go into that, I made a little list of like jobs that I think are just horrible.
Are these like modern day kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number one, politician.
Okay.
Like,
Some people love it though.
I know, but I think it's interesting to like dig into the reasons why people really love to be in that position. But and if it's for a noble cause, great. But like you have to be so ready to just for everyone to hate you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Another one is just like a sewage worker. Anybody who works with sewage or anything like that. Like God bless those people, man. That is like just insane, absolutely insane. Another one I had, I had to look up what this was called because I remember learning about it, but it was tunnel rats in the Vietnam War. And I'll read what I have here. It says, during the Vietnam War, tunnel rat became an unofficial specialty for volunteer combat engineers and infantrymen from the Australian Army and the U.S. Army who cleared and destroyed enemy tunnel complexes. Their motto was the tongue-in-cheek Latin phrase, non gratum anus rodentum, which means not worth a rat's ass. And I remember seeing pictures of the little tunnels that these guys would go in to clear out, you know, whoever they were trying to find them in these tunnels are like just claustrophobia, and they're dealing with, you could turn a corner and at some point a gun. It's like, dude, I'm all set.
Forget it.
I'm all set. This is a job that I have immense respect for, and I hope these people, you know, go to the gloriest of glory lands. But anybody who works for a motel cleaning staff, like especially a motel where there's just some bullshit going down, you know what I mean? Can't even imagine the toilets they see.
Oh my God.
And then honestly, I mentioned this earlier, but just like an assembly line worker, anybody who works just mind numbing jobs. And like, so my heart goes out to anyone who's watching this that works a job that they hate, or a mundane job, or a job where they have to deal with gross people. And, you know, shout out everyone in the service industry.
Yes, for real.
Tip your freaking bartender, you know, your
Barista.
waiters, baristas, just tip people, man. I know we talked about this in our kind of pet peeves episode, but
it's something I feel strongly about.
Yeah,
obviously.
take care of the people who take care of you. That's the motto.
Yeah. And don't be mean to them, because generally it's not there. It's out of their control, probably.
Yeah. Dude, I was walking into a thrift store today, and there's a woman waiting at the door in the morning, and they open at 10, and it was 10:01 when the guy opened the door, and she walks in and she goes, it's 10:01. I think I should get a discount.
Are you kidding?
Blah, 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 just all this. And I wanted to be like, man,
people.
If I was bolder, I would have said something, but I was like, literally just fucking disappear.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into the actual worst jobs.
Yeah. These were ones that we picked out that we thought were just fucking brutal. And we're talking worst jobs in history.
Yeah.
At least recorded history.
This is absolutely insane. These a lot of these jobs I didn't even know existed, man. I expected to look this up and be like, oh, like, you know, toll booth workers. Because, you know, at one point they had the highest suicide rate of any job.
Oh, shit.
In the U.S. Yeah. Crazy. A horrible job. But, you know, that did not come up on this list. Right. This is crazy. So, all right. This first one is insane. It's rat catchers and leech catchers. We kind of lump these ones together. Yeah. Let's do rat catchers first, man. So, time period, Middle Ages to the 18th century. So a long time ago. Here's the description. In cities plagued by rats, rat catchers were employed to control the rodent population. The job required hunting down rats, often using traps, poisons, or even trained dogs. It was dirty, dangerous, and could expose workers to disease, like the plague. Catching rats often meant wading through unsanitary conditions with very little protection against bites or infections. So let me get this straight. I'm walking around in shit to find an animal that just shits all the time.
What are they just shooting him with a bow and arrow? Like,
Dude, I don't know.
there he is.
When we found this one, I pictured some dude where you're like, you got to go see the rat catcher to finish that job. And, you know, they knock on some door. Yeah, they got to knock a special amount of times. And then, you know, this dude opens the door and he's in this like long trench coat and this hood. And he's like, what do you want? And I go, I need a rat caught. He goes, everybody needs a rat caught. And then he's got some crazy coat. It's got like rat bones all over it. You know what I mean? And he knows like all the spots they hide and like has special tools and weapons to catch them. And like, you know, he's just kind of a crazy guy.
Yo, you've seen Over the Hedge, right? Kind of right. Remember
Pope
the
shit
dude
in the
that
woods?
rolls in? He's like,
Oh yeah,
awesome.
yeah, the exterminator.
Yeah,
oh
dude's
my
fucking
god,
dialed in.
fuck that guy.
Yeah, that's what I imagine.
Good thing our hedge critters prevailed in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a crazy job, man. I mean, especially during this time period when the plague was rampant. It's like,
man, they must have been going nuts.
I mean,
Fat as hell. Probably
yeah,
eating bodies and shit.
ugh, dude.
They spread the disease, kind of, right? That was
Yeah, they were. I think they were a big part of it.
Part of
And
it.
the thing is, like, the medical knowledge wasn't there at this time too. So it's like, you know, they weren't. If we went back and did this, we'd be like, absolutely the fuck not. But you know, they might have not known, especially the people doing this job. I'm sure it, you know, it wasn't the wealthy and elite.
No, I'm sure
Like-
it was the outcasts, which
Yeah.
a lot of these jobs probably are.
Yeah, you know, the poorer parts of society at the time, and you know, these people probably just didn't know about this stuff, so they were like, hey, whatever, it's pay, you know. What a horrible job, man.
Yeah, like all the poison you're exposed to, you know.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is like your tools as well are just as dangerous, or like,
Yeah,
you know,
so
'cause they-
toxic.
yeah, they pour some mercury in this dog bowl. Okay, you know? Yeah, so that's crazy. And also leech catchers, man. So that time period is the 17th to the 19th century. And here's a description for that. Leeches were once a primary tool for medical bloodletting. Leech collectors would wade into murky waters, often in swamps or marshes, to gather leeches for medical use. The job was hazardous due to dangerous wildlife, dirty water, and the possibility of diseases or infection from the leeches themselves. Being in close contact with stagnant water also increased the risk of contracting waterborne diseases. This is interesting because I get a lot on my TikTok feed about, it's like, be wary of still water.
Like
You know
what?
what I mean?
Because it's like
I guess it's just a breeding ground for disease and horrible shit.
Interesting, yeah.
And yeah, so if you're, you know, going into that kind of place to get leeches, I mean, that's wild. Just like both of these jobs, man.
Yeah,
Catching critters and kind of putting yourself in harm's way for the benefit of others. I mean,
Killed by an alligator because you were trying to catch a couple leeches.
right.
What's a good day look like? Yeah, I got 6 leeches today.
I don't know, dude. I mean,
It's just
a good
disgusting,
question.
man.
It's a good question. It's a really gross job, but you know, to be honest, it only gets worse from here. So why don't you jump into the next one?
Yeah, next we're gonna talk about chimney sweeps, and we're talking 18th and 19th centuries.
I'm talking pre-Santa Claus.
In Victorian England, chimney sweeps were often young boys who would climb inside narrow, soot-filled chimneys to clean them. The work was physically exhausting, with workers inhaling toxic soot, and many suffered from diseases like soot cancer or respiratory issues. They're at risk of getting stuck in the chimneys or falling to their deaths. I've actually seen some old pictures of like the kids that are the chimney sweeps, and it's just sad, man. It's like they're just covered in soot, and it's just like, you know, they're like gonna die young, and
Yeah.
it's just dark, man. I mean, and I'm claustrophobic, man. I have nightmares sometimes of being in like super tight spaces. I can't move my arms.
Oh my
That
gosh.
just tweaks me out.
Here's my question. Could they not have invented a tool to just clean it from the top? You got to get in it. Is that what it's saying? They had to get in the chimney?
I mean, I think this is at a time you didn't have a crazy heating system, so like you
Right.
made a fire and you had a chimney, and I imagine you're making fires all day long, so the chimney just gets I don't know, but yeah.
That's insane. Especially like falling to your death.
I can't even imagine how many kids croaked like that.
Yeah, and well, the job itself is flawed in nature because you have to be a child
Right.
to do this job.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Can I get a labor law, please?
Yeah.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
This next one is kind of similar. Lead miners and coal miners. And lead miners specifically was during the Roman Empire, and it says lead mining was a highly toxic and dangerous profession in ancient Rome. Miners worked deep underground, often in poor ventilation, where they were exposed to lead fumes. Chronic lead poisoning was common, and the condition could cause neurological damage, insanity, and even death. As if like death is a far-fetched idea for this. The work was physically demanding, and many workers died young from the effects of poisoning. I mean, do we even need to explain this? I mean, this is like, you know what's so frustrating? Like all these jobs are like poor people working for the benefit of rich people and dying in the process.
Right.
Shit don't change, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, our next one, coal miners, 18th to 19th century. I mean, this is going to be on any dangerous jobs list, I feel like. And I guess just kind of any kind of mining in general.
Being in a mine,
Yeah, anywhere where there's not ventilation. And it says coal mining was one of the most dangerous and grueling jobs, especially during the Industrial Revolution. Miners worked in deep, cramped tunnels, often with poor ventilation, which exposed them to coal dust, which led to black lung disease, cave-ins, explosions, and flooding. Many miners died young due to accidents or respiratory diseases caused by years of exposure to toxic fumes and dust. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you imagine like a cave-in and then you're just trapped and you just suffocate or whatever?
I don't know. I mean, do you try to dig yourself out? Like,
I'm thinking huge boulders that you can't move. Like, I don't know.
I mean, do they have the tools to try to break them up? You know, they're
not.
swinging pickaxes and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm incredibly ignorant to the nature of coal mining. If you're a coal miner and you're watching this episode, please leave the process in the description. Yeah, this is crazy, man. This is an incredibly ignorant aside here, but have you seen Zoolander?
No, actually, I haven't.
You haven't? There's a scene where him and his brothers and his father are all coal miners, and he left the family tradition to go be a male model. And he finds them in a bar, and he's like, "I can be tough just like you." And he goes and mines with them. And after one day, he's like, "I got the black lung pop." So anytime I see black lung disease, I think of that.
That's funny.
But yeah, this is crazy, man.
Nuts, dude.
Any kind of mining is terrifying. Just being down in the earth and all these stories that still pop up on the news and whatnot about miners getting trapped.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I don't know how deep. Like, is it like tons of tunnels? Like, you get lost. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine if you're the one digging these tunnels and you're involved, you probably know them pretty intricately.
Yeah.
And you have a pretty good idea of the geography and direction while you're down there. And I would imagine they have they string lights or whatever, but it's still like all it takes is one freaking rat to chew through those lights, and because some rat catcher didn't do his job. I don't know. It's crazy.
It's nuts, man. All right, this is an interesting one on deck here. Executioners. And we're talking Middle Ages to the early modern period, but executioners were tasked with carrying out death sentences, a job that was both physically and psychologically taxing. In many places, executioners were social outcasts, shunned or feared by society. The act of killing others, especially by methods like beheading or hanging, took an emotional toll. Ain't no shit, Sherlock. Some executioners were also at risk of retaliation from families of the executed, leading to violence or threats against them. This is wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your job is just whacking people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I imagine some of those people, like this, we don't have a justice system like we do today. Like, maybe this fucker was innocent. Like, now I'm taking off his head. Like,
I mean, it's the type of shit where someone was like, "Hey, she's a witch," and they were like, "Bet."
Yeah. Or drive her out into the pond and strap some cinder blocks around her.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
They're just like, "Yeah, that tracks." That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Feared, but outcasts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking-
This is an insane job.
Yeah.
Like, let's be very clear. I mean, I think it begs the question, you know, what is a modern day executioner? That job still exists, man, but it's in many different forms. It's hidden with, you know,
it's a system,
structure, social structure, and class structure. I think there are many executioners still at the top of a lot of these ladders, and it's like they may be indirectly killing people, but like, you know, I mean, even the person who does lethal injection, or, you know, like that job still exists. It's just in different formats, and it's just, I find it interesting, man. Like,
it's got to take a psychological toll, I would think.
Yeah, like a lot of these jobs, if you think about it, are still around, just in a different form. You know what I mean? Like the idea of the job.
Yeah.
You know, rat catcher, you've got pest control now, and like, you know, coal miners, you've got, you know, people who work with dangerous chemicals that build car batteries or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's just it's probably safer and shit, but it's taking a different form as technology is advanced. But
it's interesting, man. But executioners is crazy. I mean, obviously you picture the dude with the hood and the giant axe and whatnot. And like, I mean, imagine, like, what does it feel like to be, you know, up next for the guillotine, man? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And what if the blade wasn't, I mean, I've heard, I could be wrong, but I feel like I remember reading that sometimes the blade wasn't sharp enough and it wouldn't cut all the way through. Hang on. Like, that's, what the fuck, man? Dude. Whose job is it to sharpen that blade?
Probably his.
I got the black lung. I can't come to work tomorrow. It's crazy. That's wild. Kind of on a similar note, you know, post-death, we got bone gatherers, man. This is so wild, dude. We're looking at the 14th to the 17th century here. And here's the description. After plagues like the Black Death, Europe was overwhelmed with death, leading to a shortage of burial space. Bone gatherers were tasked with collecting the bones from mass graves and, I don't know if I'm saying this right, ossuaries? Ossuaries? Yeah. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Often they worked in deplorable conditions, exposed to decaying corpses, and risked contracting diseases. The work was gruesome and had a strong association with death and decay. I mean, before we get into just the physical danger of this one, let's talk about the mental toll this would take. I mean, just working with dead, gruesomely decayed bodies all day.
That sounds like a horror movie.
Right. Like, you know, what does that do to you got a wife at home or whatever? It's like, what does that do to your relationship? You know, you become so desensitized to just horrible atrocities, flesh. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, I can picture just the toll that would take on your relationships. You know, someone, say your son gets a paper cut, whatever. They're like, and you're like, it's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you're gaslighting your child into not thinking that their injury is a big deal because you see horrible injury all day. And it's like, I don't know, man.
Like, how, like, some of these bodies must be pretty like fresh, I would think. Like, they're not super decayed yet.
Yeah, I'm sure they saw everything from, you know, a freshly dead body to a pile of bones. A
skeleton.
Yeah, it's all the stuff in between that's the grossest part.
And you see the skeleton, you're like, yes.
Yeah, oh, it's dry. That's crazy, man.
That is a crazy one, bro. That is nuts. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, people still do that today. I mean, what is it called? The person that shows up at a crime scene?
Forensic.
The person that collects the body.
I don't know.
It's like, it's it's not the mortician. Crap. We're gonna flash up on the screen right there.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of it. But
yeah, I mean, there's people that look at dead bodies and stuff, obviously, but
this is also like
you're digging through.
Like
mass graves.
Yeah, mass graves is crazy. Black plague death is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, because this is, I mean, you're so exposed to the disease itself, and you're so close to it all the time. It's like
there's maggots crawling everywhere.
Yeah, I'm curious what the death rate was for this job.
Probably pretty high, man.
You know,
whatever.
It's crazy. And again, like this, it was probably poor people doing this job, like people that society didn't value,
right?
Which is fucked, man. This is crazy.
Right. Absolutely
crazy job.
All right, let's talk about candle maker.
Yeah, let me crack a DC first.
I guess they were called tallow chandlers too. We're talking pre-industrial revolution here. Doesn't sound too brutal off the rip. Let's get into the description.
Yeah.
In the past, many candles were made from tallow, animal fat, which was a disgusting and unpleasant substance to work with. Tallow chandler workers would boil down animal fat, often from slaughterhouses, strain it, and use it to make candles. The fat, which could often have a rancid odor, would attract flies and insects, making the work environment filthy. The workers also had to contend with the horrible smell and mess of the process, not to mention the danger of hot fat burns. I imagine this one is more just, like disgusting. Like you're probably lose your sense of smell. And all the bugs, like burning animal fat, I can't imagine the amount of bugs you deal with.
Yeah. You would need a Biffy sniffer. Aaron, what's a Biffy sniffer? It's something my sister invented when she was young, man. It was, pipe cleaner.
Yeah.
The straw. My sister invented this thing where it went around your head and it was like an angler fish, right? It had a little thing that came down and it would wrap around a cotton ball that she would soak in perfume and it would just stick right there so you couldn't smell bad stuff.
Wow, that's fucking brilliant.
Patent pending. The Biffy sniffer.
That's wild.
Shout out to my sister for that one.
What is it called? The Diffie sniffer?
The Biffy sniffer.
Biffy sniffer?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, this job is fucking deplorable in terms of, remember a couple episodes we talked about, like, I have just the most insane sense of smell and it plagues me. I just I could never do this job, dude. Any job that just smells bad. I mean, all these jobs probably stink, but this one, like, that description is just so you can taste the words in that description. And just the idea of like working with, boiling hot animal fat, which was my nickname in high school. And it just the burn, you'd probably have just burn blisters all over your arms all day. It's just like,
oh, it sounds miserable.
Oh my God, that sounds horrible, man. But anything for a good candle, am I right?
Right. You needed them. Sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm curious when scented candles came into play, or if that's kind of always been a thing. We should do some research on that.
Yeah.
Because
this was like a light source for the most part, right?
Right.
This wasn't for to smell good. It was
when were they like, hey, this could be a light source and also something that smells really good?
Yeah.
And what an irony! It like stinks to make, but it smells really good on the way out.
I imagine these didn't smell great.
No, probably not.
Probably stunk. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
I imagine a lot of fires. There was a lot of fires too.
Yeah, dude.
Shit all day.
Oh no, my straw house or my wood house, just
cooked.
fucking Ben Franklin, writing by the candlelight. Anyway, let's dig into the next one. Embalmers. We're talking ancient Egypt to the 19th century. Embalmers, particularly in ancient Egypt, I don't know why I said Egypt like that, worked with the bodies of the dead, removing organs, treating corpses with chemicals, and mummifying them for the afterlife. The job required handling decaying flesh and organs, as well as working in hot, humid conditions. In some cultures, embalmers also prepared bodies for burial by sewing them into shrouds or coffins, which could involve additional exposure to bodily fluids and decomposition. Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting one because this is something I'm curious about as well. Like, what was it kind of an honor to be able to work with these bodies to send them into the afterlife? You know what I mean?
I would imagine. Imagine.
Especially if it was the body of like
a
notable person in
King
society.
Tut or something.
Yeah.
Didn't he get eaten by an alligator or some shit? I don't know.
Fucking fine now.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, imagine you're pulling a dude's liver out, and then he's like, he wakes up or something.
Wait, I still need that. I know I don't know. It's just like any of these jobs where you're working with dead bodies is crazy.
Yeah.
Especially this one because you're also kind of tasked with preserving the aesthetic of the body, right? Because you don't want it to be like. You don't want to see all these cut marks and blah, blah, all over it, where you went in and grabbed the organs. Like, it's got to kind of look good.
Right.
And they dress up the body or whatever. And it's like, I'm curious here when it says, like, sewing them into the shrouds or coffins. Like, were they literally sewing them to be attached?
I don't know.
Coffin?
I don't know. Maybe just sewing them up. I mean, these people believed that they were gonna go to the afterlife, and I probably had to be dialed in. I don't know why. Like there was this process of removing all the organs and stuff. You're not gonna need those, my guy.
I'm sure they used them for stuff.
Yeah, man, it was interesting. You know, all their prized possessions would be in there with them and stuff. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about royalty here. I don't know if they did this for everybody. I imagine not.
Yeah. What are you getting buried with? One object.
These questions always kill me, man. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Ask me later in my life.
Okay.
And I might
I'll ask
have
you
some
right
shit.
before you die. Hey, what do you want? Let me get a 4 for 4 from Wendy's.
Let me get a 4 Loco. No, I don't know. I have no idea, man.
That's
I don't really like. Why am I going to need anything from this life and the next? You know.
Yeah.
What,
It's a bit of a morbid story, but I remember when my grandfather died when I was younger. There was an open casket funeral or wake, and I had this like orange dye that I really liked. It was like a totem for me. I remember I just put that in his casket, man. And it's crazy to think it's still in there to this day.
Yeah, wow, it's cool. You like stuck it in, or you?
I
told
just like
people?
I don't remember if I gave it to someone to put in there or you know if I just kind of placed it in or whatever, but I don't know. It's just crazy to think about all the stuff that people are buried with. I wonder what the combined value of every object that every dead person is buried with is.
So much.
You know?
I'm sure it's crazy shit.
Probably at least $100, dude. It's crazy.
Hey,
All right, what's this next one?
I got you. Let's talk about poop, bro.
Gladly.
We're talking. I grouped a few of these jobs in together.
Okay.
But we're talking about the shit specialist,
Talking about us?
the turd technician, right? The poop proprietor, bro. The doo-doo delegate. All right, I'm done.
Oh my gosh. This is why you don't get any sleep, man.
We're going ancient to early modern times. I got a few different ones that deal with this, but before modern plumbing and sanitation systems, obviously many cities lacked indoor plumbing, and human waste was often disposed of in cesspits or even just thrown into the streets. That's crazy, bro. Imagine just dumping your shit bucket.
Yeah.
Some suckers walking below you.
Yeah.
So first up, let's talk about night soil collectors. These people were tasked with collecting human waste from cesspits, latrines, and buckets in people's homes during the night.
Lord.
This was done by hand or with basic tools, and workers often had to transport the waste to the outskirts of the city for disposal. The work was foul-smelling, obviously, dangerous, and carried a high risk of infection and disease. In some ancient societies, particularly in Rome, workers known as dung sweepers, Kanye wrote a song about this, Poopity Scoop, were responsible for cleaning up animal waste, human feces, and other shit from the streets. In some cultures, these workers also dealt with manure from animal-drawn carts, making it a revolting and hazardous job, especially when diseases were spread by exposure to waste.
Yeah.
And last but not least, only permitted to work at night, gong farmers, also called nightmen. That's what like the slang for them was. They're like, oh, I think that dude's a nightman.
Oh, word.
We're tasked with digging out and taking away all the human waste in set pits, paid per ton. They spent all night in deep holes up to their waist or neck in human shit. Some died of disease or suffocated. Imagine suffocating in a couple dumps. That's crazy, bro. This is nuts, man. I imagine these people were straight outcasts of society.
Yeah. They probably stunk all the time.
Probably, I imagine didn't get a lot of hugs.
No.
Not a lot of handshakes for these guys. Especially these gong farmers, dude.
Yeah.
You know, suffocation? Are you kidding me?
That's
got to be the worst way to go.
That's insane. Yeah, death by drowning in shit.
Yeah,
That's
literally.
wild. I have a question about this one.
Yeah.
Do you think the guys who walked around the city collecting shit, do you think they had a game where they would go, what do you think that guy had for dinner? And it was like potatoes again. Do you think they would try to guess what people ate?
Probably, bro.
How do you make that job fun? That's the ultimate challenge in life. How do you make this job fun?
Randy's house. Fuck.
No.
Who's doing this one? You know?
My god.
I'm sure there were legit shit specialists. I mean, they could when they're looking at the bear shit, they know that's bear shit.
Yeah, we should have taken a freaking dung farmer with us on
Dong farmer.
with us on our hike in Tallulah Gorge, man.
Dude, yeah. I mean, oh God, you just must, your sense of smell must just be gone. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I wonder if that's something you ever get used to, though.
I don't
You know what I
know. I
mean?
don't
Because like
know.
when you go home, hopefully your home doesn't smell like it. So maybe you get unused to it for 8 hours, and then you go back and you're like, "There's that shit smell again."
I don't know.
That sounds
It
horrible.
smells terrible. Like, you know, your sense of smell gets used to things though.
Right.
Like, I imagine like after a while they just don't even smell anything. I
That's-
don't know.
That's
But
wild.
yeah, that's the shit specialist.
Wow, that's
Wild.
ridiculous. What about a petardier? How do you pronounce this?
Petardier.
Petardier. Petardier.
Good effort. Good effort.
Petard.
Back it up.
We're gonna talk about we're talking 16th to 18th century, in particular, reference to siege warfare. The word petard is derived from the French pater, meaning to fart. Petards were often bell-shaped metal devices filled with gunpowder and fixed to a wooden base. The base was attached to the wall or gate of a besieged castle, and the explosion focused to cause maximum damage. So they were like a breach charge guy.
Right.
Petardiers operated these hugely dangerous and unstable devices. They were as likely to kill themselves as to damage the enemy's castle.
I like those odds.
The phrase "hoist by your own petard," meaning to be foiled by your own plan, comes from the prevalence of petardiers being blown up by their own bombs. This is nuts, man. I mean, that is a death sentence. They're like going on a mission. They're planning the mission. And they're like, all right, who's going to be the petard?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine like you play the video games and stuff where you're holding down the fort and you got some guy running up, or the movies you've seen, he's running up with the bomb, or like the orc is running up with the, you got to shoot the fucker before he gets there. I imagine people are throwing shit at this guy. They see him coming in, like,
Yeah. Talk about
getting to the gate is probably a death sentence.
This might be the worst one, man. I mean, people are trying to kill you, period.
Yeah.
But you're also the dude that carries the device that's going to get your guys into that castle. People hate you extra, man.
Oh, you're the worst.
They're like, hey, don't focus on, forget about all those other guys storming the castle. Kill that guy.
Yeah.
Kill that guy right there.
He's the number one target.
That's nuts, man. I mean, I'm curious, like, what, if they ever kind of developed a workaround for, like,
Getting them up
obviously,
there.
because we have a modern breach charge today
Right.
that doesn't kill the people using it as much. But I wonder how long this went on. How long they were like, "Yep, that's all we got." You know what I mean? Like that's the best they got. I mean, this is an insane job.
And this was probably a guy that was pretty skilled too, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure you train in this for a period of time, but then when you go out into, I mean, everything you can imagine, and when you're sieging a castle, like it's like that saying, once the first shot goes, like the plan is out the window. I'm sure it's just fucking chaos, man. And you're trying to plant an explosive on a door.
Yeah. You
Oh
got
my
like
gosh.
hot. They're pouring like hot coals on you
Yeah.
from the top.
Heave! You know what I mean? That's wild,
Nutty,
man.
Nutty, bro. That's
That's a
nutty.
crazy job.
Next up, we got plague bearer. Talking 17th century, like the plague era. In 1665, the plague caused 69,000 deaths in London.
Nice.
Government directives required nighttime collection and burial of victims. Parishes hired plague bearers who toured the streets at night, collecting the dead and depositing them in mass graves and churchyards. They spent their nights around plague victims and rotting corpses, risking their lives. And their days, this is an interesting part, and their days were spent in the churchyard, surrounded by those same bodies, because they were required to live there to avoid infecting others.
Wow.
So this is like, even when you're off your shift of scooping up dead bodies and lugging them around, you got to hang out with them. That's brutal.
It's insane, dude. That's kind of similar to Bone Gatherers. Kind of reminds me of that one as well.
Yeah.
Just people, you're just going to get dead bodies all day. I mean, that's fucking
the
nuts,
trauma
man.
of that, man. Jeez.
Yeah. Jesus.
Just so you can eat and shit. Like,
I know. So who knows how long you'll even be eating, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like a job you're almost guaranteed to die from doing.
Literally.
It's insane. Next one we got wool fuller. That's kind of a mouthful. Middle Ages, medieval. That seems to be kind of a common theme for a lot of these.
Yeah.
During the Middle Ages, wool became the center of England's economy. By 1300, there were probably 15 million sheep in England, outnumbering humans 3-1. There's too many of them. After its initial loose weave, the wool needed to be cleaned and stripped of grease. That's where the fuller came in. The job of a wool fuller required marching on the spot in a vat all day. That was boring and tiring, but the perfect liquid to remove dirt and grease and whiten the wool was stale human urine. Oh my God.
It's got to be stale.
Yeah, can't be fresh. So added to the trampling all day, your feet were soaked in old wee-wee. That was the cost of the finest cloth in Europe. That's what you had to do.
Dude, who figured out that piss does the job? Like,
This is the thing with a lot of these jobs. Like, who figured this shit out?
probably
man?
some dude that hated the job. He's like, fuck this job. He's like pissing on the wool. And he's
You're
like,
never gonna believe this.
stamping on
It's
it.
coming out
He's
right.
like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
And then some guy walks in. He's like, Jimmy, you got it.
That's crazy,
What the
man.
hell?
Just standing in piss all day.
I think of like making wine, like you're
Yeah.
like stomping on grapes and stuff. You're just but you're standing in piss. And you're like, yikes, dude, what the hell?
The amount of shoulders we stand on, man.
Right.
It's crazy.
You're like, they're forcing you to like chug water so you can like piss more on it.
Yeah.
That piss has been marinating there for a few hours. It should be good to go.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Dump the new piss in. That's crazy.
So nuts, man. So nuts. All right, let's wrap it up with a couple like I thought were truly bizarre.
Yeah.
So we got Groom of the Stool. And if you haven't heard of this, let me break it down for you. Implemented during the reign of Henry VII and only abolished in 1901 by Edward VII. The role of Groom of the Stool required the holder to take the monarch to the toilet, check whatever went on in there, and clean the regal bottom afterwards. So you're wiping the king's ass, I guess.
That's a nice way to say it.
Yeah, despite the obvious unpleasantness, the job was considered one of the most prestigious posts in the kingdom. The one-on-one time and unique access to the royal ear meant the groom was perfectly positioned to influence the royal mind on any topic. Hey, you should start eating less corn.
Oh my gosh.
So it wasn't all bad. I imagine this was like a young cat that came from maybe a poor family. It was like, oh, and the family's psyched that
Yeah.
you get to wipe his ass. Hell yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't know.
man. That is absolutely
That's
insane.
nuts, man.
I mean, it's crazy to think that they had influence too. Like,
right.
you know, he's wiping the king's ass and he murmurs something. And you go, wait, what'd you say? It's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, that was a good shit, sir.
Next thing you know, they're sieging the castle. That's wild,
And
man.
it says check whatever went on in there. Like, what are you examining the dump?
I'm sure everything went on in there.
Yeah.
But from, just the king or the king with other people too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
God forbid you go in there with a black light.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. This next one is kind of similar. A whipping boy. This one is bananas,
This is
dude.
bonkers.
There's doubt whether this was a real thing or not. So, grain of salt. But some stories tell of boys who were educated with princes or child kings and received the punishments earned by their betters. Reputedly, the sons of noblemen, a whipping boy would be beaten because a tutor could not hit a prince or monarch. Like the groom of the stool, the role of whipping boy was considered desirable, presumably by parents rather than boys in line for beatings, because it fostered closeness to royalty. This is crazy, dude.
This is nuts, man.
Like, we were talking about this a little bit before we started, but just the idea that, you had to bear the consequences of the actions of like a rich kid.
Yeah, like
this
your
is
buddy
nuts.
or whatever.
Yeah.
He fucks up and you're getting an ass whooping.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows like they just need to take their anger out.
Right.
It had nothing
right.
to do, like,
Dude, yeah. Imagine like your friends too, and you're like, yo, stop fucking up, man.
Yeah.
Stop.
I'm gonna get whipped. Yeah. And they're like, oops.
Yeah.
They push the cup off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do not want to get on the bad side of those people.
Jeez,
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Fuck that, man. Imagine the entitlement of the young prince.
My God. Yeah.
Fuck.
Just the fact that you can't get can't get hit, man.
Yeah.
It's
Crazy, bro.
that invincibility breeds like entitlement.
Yeah,
And that's where these bloated, fucking shitty rulers come from.
And like the fact that the parents were like, "Oh, you get to be a whipping boy? Yes.
Yeah.
We need a new horse.
Exactly.
You know? Catch
Go get
that.
whipped, okay?
Don't be a bitch.
Papa needs a new pair of shoes. That's wild.
That's nuts, man. All right.
All right.
Last but not least here.
This one's wild.
Yeah, this is actually I think the most wild one. I'll read the first part and you can take the second part,
Sure.
Rizzo. Sin eater. This is nuts. A sin eater was a person in medieval and early modern Europe, primarily in England and Wales, as well as parts of Scotland and the rural U.S. during the 17th and 18th centuries, who performed a ritual act of eating or absorbing the sins of a deceased person. This practice was believed to transfer the deceased sins to the sin eater, thus allowing the soul of the dead person to pass on peacefully to the afterlife. Sin eaters were often regarded as social outcasts, living on the fringes of society. They were typically poor, marginalized individuals who performed this ritual in exchange for food, money, or other small offerings. Sometimes they were seen as having a special, although strange, role in the community, but they were often also looked down upon due to the belief that they took on the unclean nature of sin.
That's crazy that they were looked down upon for that. They're saving people's asses.
Right. But I mean, I guess now they are. It's funny that they thought that it transferred like that.
Yeah. Well, here's the ritual. In the ceremony, the sin eater would be offered food and drink, often bread and ale, or a piece of the deceased's food, which was believed to have the power to absorb the sins of the deceased. The act of eating the food symbolized taking on the person's sins. So, you get to eat, and that's not bad. Ritual was sometimes performed at the wake or burial of the deceased, and the sin eater would often speak a few words or prayers such as, "I take your sins upon me." The idea was that by performing this act, the sin eater would cleanse the deceased soul, allowing it to be free from sin and ascend to heaven. It was based on a folk belief that evolved in rural, isolated communities where superstitions were stronger and the official religious practices like confession or last rites were often inaccessible or poorly understood. As Christianity became more institutionalized and the official teachings of the church took hold, the practice of sin eating gradually faded away. The idea that sins could be transferred in this way conflicted with the church's teachings on sin, confession, and absolution. That's wild.
Yeah.
I picture the really apathetic sin eater that like they're at the wake and everyone's really sad and this person walks out, they like take a bite of bread and they're like, yeah, I don't know. I take his sins, I guess.
You got I mean, maybe they just don't believe in all that shit. They're just like, I'm catching a free meal.
I mean, yeah, maybe it's just a crazy job to think about.
It's just wild that like, let me lay a piece of bread on this person's chest, and then you come over and eat it. And now he murdered 5 people, but that's your burden now. Like that's just crazy, bro.
But you know what, man? There's a lot of weird stuff like that we do today.
Yeah,
It's interesting. Both religious things and non-religious things, you know.
someone had the idea though, like originally probably.
Yeah, they were
And
like,
we're
hear me out.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. How are we going to get rid of the sins? They could eat. They could eat their food. They're like, anybody else got anything better?
yeah.
All right, we'll go with that. Yeah, I'm sure the idea rooms for a couple of these jobs were probably pretty crazy. I mean, these are, again, jobs that I never in my wildest dreams could have even imagined existed.
No.
You know, it's like, obviously, thank God no one has to do these jobs today. And not to, downplay, like every, era of history has its tough, with new advances in technology and stuff comes new problems. But I mean, those jobs are fucking.
I mean, those are
bad,
brutal,
man.
Yeah, those are brutal, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, there's probably a massive list that we're missing that we didn't find or whatever.
Of course. I'm
So
sure.
that's another thing. It's like if you whoever's listening, like if you have bad jobs or horrible occupations throughout history or whatever, please leave them in the comments because I'm still curious about this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly these weren't the worst like labor jobs ever. Like we didn't dive into slave labor and stuff like that,
Right.
obviously. But I mean, I guess these people made a buck or
Right.
were compensated in some
Yeah.
way.
So I don't know if these were the worst jobs in history, but
Yeah.
they were some really bad jobs.
Yeah, yeah, in the era of recorded history.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a crazy conversation, to be honest. I mean, like, it's funny. I'm literally about to do a session after this. I'm like,
Pretty grateful.
all right, yeah. This might not be that bad. you know?
Yeah, so
crazy.
yeah.
It's crazy, dude.
It's nuts, brother.
Well-
Nuts. Makes me grateful that even all the shitty experiences I've had at work could be a lot shittier. No
Yeah.
pun intended.
Mhm.
How you doing?
The moral is here: be grateful for what you have, and never stop working to make it better.
Yeah, you can change your situation.
But you can't change your.
Bang! How you doing?
Wow.